Hi. Wars are often the beginning of a bitter endings, and in such moments, the heaviest and most responsible mission falls on the shoulders of the third party that chooses to mediate in the name of ending the conflict. As the sides, Iran and Israel, are steering the conflict ever closer to the rocks, Azerbaijan is turning into a place of hope for the ceasefire. Today on Baku Network, we are going to discuss the ongoing Israel-Iran clashes and repercussions of the Middle East escalation with Dr. Hay Aitan Cohen Yanarajak, Tel Aviv University. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. The Iran-Israel conflict has been ongoing for several days, and at any moment it could escalate into full-scale war, dragging numerous countries from the USA to North Korea into it. So even setting aside the economic upheavals, the humanitarian consequences of the confrontation are difficult to fully grasp, to be honest. Now the only choice is to bring this issue to the ceasefire and talks at the table. So do you think that at least temporarily tranquility is feasible amid the present red hot clashes? I mean, is it possible to achieve a positive result at the table despite many discrepancies in the views of the sides?
First of all, I would like to emphasize that this is a full-scale war and not a limited operation. We are seeing that the Israel Defense Forces conducted a preemptive strike against the Iranian regime. And we are seeing that the most important objective is to eliminate Iran's nuclear capabilities as well as the ballistic missile program, which is constituting an existential threat against the Jewish state. So, for years, the Israeli governments are warning the international community about this grave nature of this program, of the nuclear program, as well as the ballistic missile program. And at the end, we saw that the Iranian administration and the US government could not reach to a common ground during the last 2 month long negotiations. And at the end, Israel had no choice and conducted this military operation because at the end, Israel was threatened by the Ayatollah regime of Iran from being wiped out of the map. Israel is the only United Nations member state that it is threatened with its own very existence. Therefore, since the Jewish nation experienced many unpleasant experiences like the Jewish Holocaust, we cannot say that no, Iranians will not going to kill us. Okay, we cannot disregard this threat, and the very existence of the Jewish state is to protect the Jews from a second Holocaust. And if a state like Iran, the Ayatollah regime, is calling for the destruction of the state of Israel, so we have no choice but to take this in a very serious manner. And therefore, this operation was conducted, and it is still not over. Many of the facilities, nuclear facilities, were struck, but not all of them. For instance, the Fordow nuclear facility was still unharmed. And therefore, I think it is very easy to speak about a ceasefire. There is also another problem here that the Iranian regime is not recognizing the state of Israel. I would like to remind you that before 1979, both countries, Iran and Israel, had proper diplomatic relations.
Yes.
So, if a country has to make a step here towards recognition, then first of all, let the Iranians recognize the state of Israel and the hostilities. And of course, then we can find a common ground. However, unless they are not going to end the hostilities against Jerusalem. So basically, we have no room to maneuver. We unless we're gonna see the end of this nuclear program and this ballistic missile program of the Iranian regime, so we cannot make a U-turn. Of course, we cherish our relationship with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is a very important player in the region, and we really appreciate all of its efforts also in this current conflict. and also with our relationship with Turkey. We really do appreciate everything that
By the
Azerbaijan
way,
does.
Doctor, we'll come back to this issue right in the next question. I would like to mention this,
Sure,
honestly.
sure.
Well, we see the escalation is going deeper and deeper day by day.
Yes.
And we understand that both sides that what they want. And from Iran's perspective, Iran says that its nuclear facility is not a threat. It's not. It doesn't have a purpose to create a nuclear bomb or anything. So
Uh-huh.
let's put these all aside. Let's put these all aside because what we see here in the region in the Middle East now, the escalation brings to catastrophe, and its effect is really, really growing and going to expand towards the regional countries, and especially Azerbaijan is concerned about this. But
Yeah.
let me say back to your impressions about Azerbaijan and Turkey. There are already several countries anticipating the common threat. We know it. Azerbaijan is number one country that is anticipating this threat because we are sharing the border with Iran, the largest area, let's say. However, what is truly needed is trust and the experience necessary to achieve a successful outcome. And Azerbaijan has long been recognized as a close partner of Israel and was instrumental in facilitating the early stages of rapprochement between Ankara and Tel Aviv, as we say. So years ago, which happened. And Iran is also Azerbaijan's closest neighbor, let's say. And given that over 30 million Azerbaijanis live in this territory now, so this becomes a matter of crucial importance. But today, there are a few countries that Iran and Israel can rely on in peace brokering. What about Azerbaijan, Doctor, in this case?
Of course, again, I would like to highlight once again that we in Israel really appreciate and respect Azerbaijan. We cherish our relationship, but I think at least in the current circumstances, that the very existence of the Jewish state is at stake. Unfortunately, we cannot still talk about a mediation because let's imagine that today there will be a ceasefire and the Iranian program was still not destroyed completely. The Iranian ballistic missile capabilities are not destroyed completely. And let's also say that Khamenei will remain in power. So I would like to ask you a question. What did we achieve here? Why did we do that?
So, do you think
Yes.
eliminating Iran's supreme leader, that Israel will achieve to its object, and the nuclear facilities and nuclear threat is going to be completely removed from this agenda?
I don't think that it would be finished with the assassination of the Iranian supreme leader, but rather what it needs to be done here is the toppling of the regime, obviously. As I mentioned,
Well, I'll have a question about that later.
sure, okay. As I already mentioned in the beginning of our interview, that Israel had no hostilities against the Iranian nation, and it was the Ayatollah regime that declared hostilities against the Jewish state in 1979 with the Islamic Revolution. So, if someone should undo something, it's not Israel, but it is the Islamic Republic of Iran. Its very nature, its raison d'être, right? And the reason of being of this state is against the state of Israel. It declared the Jewish state as its most important arch enemy, despite the fact that the Israeli people are not seeing the Iranian people as their enemies. So the problem here is not um, kind of a disagreement over a portion of territory or a kind of a national pride. The problem is the very existence of Israel. And unless we're gonna persuaded that this threat is not there anymore,
Mhm.
uh, we have to continue. We have no other choice. This is our
Okay.
this is this must be done not for ourselves, but for our children and for our grandchildren. If we want here a Jewish state, then this Iranian threat must be eradicated at all costs.
Okay. Uh, Dr. Aiton. So let's get a little into the process as you talk about this and Iran-Israel confrontation and the US support, in
Yeah.
particular targeting Iran's most strategic locations and key figures. So Trump's latest posts, I want to go back to this now. So Trump's latest post is interpreted as new attack plan, literally an assassination attack on Iran's supreme leader, which came yesterday. And it comes at a very crucial time, let's say. But by the way, yesterday news came about hitting the vicinity of the target where Iran's supreme leader was supposed to be. So, what would be the overall consequence if this plan comes true, or will Trump stick to this plan?
Well, of course, I'm not in the White House and I was not exposed to Trump's grand plans, right?
I would like to
Likely.
hear your general
I,
ideas about
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm thinking out loud together with you. The fact that the vicinity of Khamenei's bunker was targeted, I assume that it was a very clear message to him that we know where you're hiding, and you are not in a position of bargaining. And maybe you should retake your decisions, right?
Yep.
To soften your attitude because you are not in a position that you can take here decisions as nothing happened. I would like to remind you that the Israeli Air Forces took control over the entire Iranian airspace. So this is the fact that Iran is still capable of launching missiles. Yes, this is a reality, but the fact that the Israeli Air Forces is dominating the Iranian skies is giving an enormous opportunity for Israel to get rid of anything it decides.
Mhm.
And therefore, in my opinion, what Donald Trump really wants even until the last moment, he is doing his best in order not to drag the United States into this war and to finish it with an Iranian surrender at the negotiating table. But you're also from the Middle East or Caucasia, but more or less you know the culture of this region.
Sure.
And I also personally know the culture of the region, and I really do not think that the Iranians would be ready to surrender. For them, it's a kind of a thing of an honor, and I do not think that sociologically they are built to take such a decision. And therefore, we are marching towards the dead end, and we will have two different scenarios then. The first scenario, which is much more preferable for the state of Israel, is the inclusion of the United States in this war and the total destruction of the Fordow nuclear facilities that were built under the ground. Okay, and if such an involvement will not take place, then let me tell you, the war will most likely escalate even more and Israel then will have to think some other methods to get rid of Fordow. But let me be very clear: this war will not be over unless this Fordow nuclear facility will be destroyed,
Mhm.
and this is very crystal clear. The Libyan model must be implemented also in Iran. Nobody is believing in the Iranians. Only today in the morning they bombed a hospital in the central Negev region in Israel. And we are not talking about a regime, a country which respects human rights. They are talking about obliterating a nation from the ground. And
Mhm.
in this regard, there is no room to maneuver, even if we wanted to have such a room.
Uh, you came a very interesting point. Just want to talk about the nuclear facilities. You said, unless Israel completely destroys the nuclear facilities deep inside the ground. So, how about the lives of people? We know technically when these facilities are destroyed and when a little miscalculation goes, things go wrong, this could be a life threat. And the regions are a matter of question here because the epicenter of nuclear, we know that it's the radiation is spread around thousands and thousands of kilometers. Even Israel can be affected if a very huge, destructions happen there. So, does Israel consider this, all of this, given its own territory, given other regions around Iran, and especially Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan has twice sent a warning to Israel, let's say,
Yeah.
concerning the hitting the places, but yet it's not the threat of the nuclear now, but it's a threat of killing the civilians now leaving around. So because the civilians are also losing life. So does Israel calculate these all things that if it takes the target, completely destroying the nuclear facilities, also on the other side, on the other hand, considering the spread of the threat around the region? What do you
Yeah.
think about that, Doctor?
I think this is very challenging, and I assume that the Israeli decision makers are also making these kind of calculations. As you said, this radiation may also reach to Israel. But let me be very clear: if this program will not be stopped, this radiation, may God forbid, may only affect Israel in the future.
Mhm.
So we already see ourselves at the center of this radiation threat, and therefore we prefer, of course, the dismantling of this program in peaceful manners. However, we cannot see that it will going to happen. And therefore, if this nuclear facility will be detonated, so let it be detonated in the Iranian territory and not in Israeli land. So this is the very simplistic conclusion that we can take from here. I know that it sounds very harsh, but we are in a war of existential threat. And in a war of existential threat, unfortunately, we cannot speak about gray zones. We can only speak about white and black zones. And therefore, if the Iranian regime is taking care of their citizens, and we all know that they do not care about their own citizens. They are the champions of, killing their own people, and they are executing them on daily basis. So they would like to hug their national pride instead of doing everything to provide life to their people.
Mm. All right. We hope that there's going to be, the talks between Iran and Israel will come to the table, hopefully, because the threat of nuclear is a matter of question, as I said. And as we see, we observe through these processes that the escalation is going deeper now. As days are passing now, we see it's not going to be, the situation is not going to be mitigated, but it's going deeper and it's getting harsh. So hopefully that is going to be resolved. But I want to also turn to the question concerning the rumors about the historical reversal in Iran. As you said also in the early questions, you mentioned about the process before 1979. Reza Shah Pahlavi period. So, as I said, currently there's a rumor about the historical reversal in Iran, and especially after the last member of the dynasty who spoke to the media amidst the ongoing tensions last day, a few days ago, called his people to resist against the incumbent government and condemned the regime, he said, in quotation, and the escalation of the tensions in the Middle East. Do you think Iran is ready to welcome the prince if the current government in the country is toppled? Or what could be an option to replace the ruling government in Iran?
Well, I'm not an expert on Iran, but as a person who is living in Tel Aviv and observing the Middle Eastern politics from very closely, I can tell you that yes, the Shah Reza Pahlavi, the grandson, of course, obviously can function here as an alternative, but he's talking about democratization of Iran. He's not talking about a monarchy. So it would be up to the people of Iran. I really wish that democracy will come to Iran, and these people can get rid of this Ayatollah regime as soon as possible. And then Iran would be once again integrated into the Western world as it was before. So, is it an option? Yes, definitely it is an option. At the end, according to Pahlawi's latest statement, he already paved the way for the day after of this war. He said that he is ready to run the country entirely. So, as we are looking at this large picture, this large map in the Middle East, we can say that if indeed the regime would be toppled, then Israel would be victorious and would bring a new order to the Middle East that would be crowned with the expansion of the Abraham Accords. We are talking about a constructive approach for the whole Middle East that
Yeah,
could include
including Arab
Saudi Arabia.
countries.
Yes, that could also expand it. We can also expand it to Saudi Arabia, Iran, and despite the fact that we have perfect relations with Azerbaijan, I know also Azerbaijan would like to get into this, pact, we can say, this Abraham Accords camp, and it would be a win-win situation also for the Iranian people, also for Israel, also for the Gulf states, also for Azerbaijan, and we should be hopeful. Now there is a war. This war is not an ordinary war.
Mhm,
This war is designed to achieve certain ambitious goals, and only with the achievement of these goals, the Middle East can turn into a more secure environment. I would like to remind you that the war in the Gaza Strip that was initiated by Hamas, uh, who is Hamas's most important sponsor? Of course, the Iranian regime. We all know it. Who was Hezbollah's most important sponsor? The Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon. Who is their most important sponsor? Who is sponsoring the Houthis in Yemen?
mhm.
Wherever we are seeing a problematic, entity, we see that the Islamic Republic of Iran is there. So it is time to topple this entity and to restore the respected relations and friendly relations between the state of Israel with the Iranian state, between the Israeli people and the Iranian people. Again, we do not see the Iranian people as our enemies. They are not our enemies.
Mhm.
We see only the Ayatollah regime of Iran as our enemy. And I
Uh,
think very
Dr. Aiton,
crystal clear.
Dr. Aiton, I want to rewind back to the history. You mentioned that the relation between Iran and Israel was way better before 1979 revolution.
Yeah,
But let's make an excursion to the history. Let's say back in 1950s, remember, even the first prime minister of Israel, Ben Gurion, David Ben Gurion, he had foreign policy strategy that is peripheral doctrine. That was the part of this peripheral doctrine. You remember that was the inclusion of Iran, particularly in this region. Iran was the main partner of Israel in the
true.
region because at that time that was the policy of Israel to protect itself from the Arab countries. But today we see a very big shift in this process, and so Arab countries are much prone to have a good relation with Israel, but we see Iran is changing. Also, in certain period of time, we see 1950s, like 51, 53 years, Mohammad Mossadegh, Prime Minister of Iran, even during the Pahlavi period, the Shah time, we saw some, shaking in the government system in Iran because there was a nationalization process, especially on its own source, oil source. And they wanted to kick out the UK and the United States of America, also Israel. But the revolution inside the country, they changed it abruptly. And I want to mention also some religious, attitudes that were growing, anti-Semitist, especially the attitudes were growing in there, especially during the Nawab Safavis. I mean, uh, I mean, policy, let's say, it was clerical, main clerical, and who was rising in the country. You know what I mean? I mean, why I just mentioned these whole things because even during the Shah time, Shah's period, we saw these kind of things arising there, and the relations still broke between Israel and Iran. So, do you think if the Shah Pahlavi comes back to the power, so this will ensure a long time period of safe relations uh, for the future between Israel and Iran, also including the Western allies? Uh, I
Well,
don't mind. I don't mention the Abraham Accord because we really appreciate. Azerbaijan also appreciates the Abraham Accord, but we're talking about the political system in Iran and
yeah,
from your perspective.
okay. First of all, I'm not a naive person. The Iranian people were, subject to the propaganda of the Ayatollah regime for decades. And of course, unfortunately, maybe some of them were turned against the Jewish state, were turned into anti-Semites. We cannot, of course, disregard this reality. But maybe if we are talking about history, then we can turn into the Nazi Germany. I think the Nazi Germany was poisoned well far beyond your imagination when you compare to Iran, or maybe they were more or less the same. But at the end of the Second World War, when the Allies, thank God, defeated the Nazi Germany, Germany went through a denazification campaign. So, in this regard, as a person who is working at a university in the education sector, we should once again highlight the importance of education. Okay, so if we would like to have a peaceful Middle East, we have to teach our children about the peaceful coexistence between the nations. It means that the new Iranian curriculum must be, introduced. The school textbooks must be changed, and the demonization against the state of Israel and its to very existence must fade away from the school textbooks. I know the importance of the school textbooks because it was my PhD dissertation. So if we are talking about a future generation, we have to give importance to the next generation, to the education system. There is a very important byword that I really like to quote. It was said by Chaim Gino, an Israeli pedagogue. He said, "The children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them, leave a mark." Okay,
Mhm.
so our children are looking at us. We are teaching them the fundamentals, the culture, language, values, everything. Instead of destruction, we have to speak about collaboration among nations, friendship among the nations, and therefore we have no choice but to get rid of the Ayatollah regime of Iran and to make a similar denazification campaign inside Iran. Today, when you're going to Germany, you see the vast majority of the German people are not Nazis, right? Of
Sure.
course, maybe
Yeah.
there are some people, more or less, like in every society,
This was a
that
dark
are
page of
radicals.
history,
Yeah,
and it was folded and it was gone and it
yeah.
showed. Yeah,
So how it was gone? Because of the education and because of the
sure.
denazification.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The ideology, the
yeah,
clear and nice thinking. And
yeah.
thank you very much, Dr. Adhan Cohen Yanarojak. Uh,
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for your valuable time sharing with us and talking about the ongoing situation. And as we said, today, Israel and Iran conflict is going to escalate the Middle East tensions now. And we're hopeful about this soon ceasefire that would take place and the Middle East, the thread over the Middle East would come over. And thank you very much for watching. We were on
Thank
Baku
you.
Network with Dr. Cohen Yanaro Jack from Tel Aviv University. Thank you. See you later.